Hmm. Uh, huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Ruben Olson.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues, Campfire Clues. I am your host, Taylor, and today we're going to be exploring a little bit into Mount Shasta. But before we get into that, a couple of plugs. You can find us on our website, CryptidClues.ca, our social media channels on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and you can send us an email if you like as well, CryptidClues@gmail.com if you want to say hi or just check out what's new. We're also available on Patreon, where you can get ad-free, exclusive early episodes. And from that, I just want to say thank you to everyone because the show continues to grow. And this past month of May has been our best month yet in terms of just listeners. And we can't thank you guys enough for just showing the support. It means a lot. Me and Ruben, we put in a lot of hard work into this show. We do our research and we try to compile as much interesting information that is interesting to us and we hope is interesting to you guys, and we compile it together in a hopefully a relatively good format that you guys can listen to and understand and learn a little bit more about these different things. So I'm so happy that I get to share this passion with all of you guys listening. It means the world. So thank you again for your support, and we have good things coming. We're gonna keep working hard to pumping out some good new more content, so definitely stay tuned. But without further ado, let's get into this. So Mount Shasta, this is rumored to be the home of lizard people, lemurians, a plethora of UFOs, and an incredibly complex network of tunnels. But before we explore that, I like to get into a little bit of the history and the geography. So Mount Shasta is a potentially active volcano at the southern end of the Cascade Range in Siskiyou County, California. The mountain consists of 4 overlapping dormant volcano cones that have built a kind of a complex shape, including the main summit and the prominent satellite cone, which is about 12,330 feet. Now, Mount Shasta's surface is relatively free of deep glacial erosion, except for its more southern side. And throughout the last 10,000 years, Mount Shasta has erupted on average of every 800 years, and in the past 4,500 years, the volcano has erupted an average of every 600 years, with its last recorded eruption being 1786. So it's starting to expedite its eruptions more frequently. And the Cascade Range itself is a segment of the Pacific Mountain System of Western North America. The Cascades themselves extend north for more than 700 miles from Northern California through Oregon and Washington to the Fraser River of British Columbia. Many of these peaks themselves exceed 10,000 feet, and a fair share of them are actually extinct volcanoes. A lot of the wildlife out here can include black bears, coyotes, squirrels, deer, eagles, falcons, and red-tailed hawks. So there's definitely a rich ecosystem. I highly recommend looking at photos of this place. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And beginning actually in 1820, Mount Shasta was a prominent landmark along what became known as the Siskiyou Trail, which runs at Mount Shasta's base. The Siskiyou Trail was on the track of an ancient trade and travel route of Native American footpaths and between California's Central Valley and the Pacific Northwest. Now, it's no secret that Mount Shasta has become somewhat of an energetic beacon of attraction for some communities, including my mother, who actually did go there a couple years ago. She went out on a spiritual journey with some people, and she had this calling to go to this place. And this is actually where I had first heard of Mount Shasta, was through my mother. And she came back and she was telling me all about her experiences there and just the vibrational frequency that she was tapping into out there. So there's definitely something going on. Now, there's lots of campgrounds and hikes that are accessible there, but Again, one of the main draws is the stories and legends that are associated with this place, on top of that energy. Native Americans have always felt that the mountain itself was sacred, with some stories depicting it as being the home of the creator. And this mountain actually connects to the territories of the Shasta, the Wintu, Akumawi, Atsigui, and Modoc tribes. I apologize, and I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. I always struggle with my pronunciation. But to really get us into some of these unknown parts, let's start off with the legend of Telos. Telos is a name given to a crystal city that resides inside the mountain itself, inhabited by higher dimensional beings called Lemurians. Now, beings that can access other dimensions is not new to the cryptid realm. This is something even Ron Moorhead spoke to in regards to quantum Bigfoot. But I digress. Now, with the Lemurians, they had an ancient continent called Lemuria. Now, this was in the North Pacific Ocean thousands of years ago, and Atlantis actually plays a hand in this story as well. Both continents essentially got into a war. Thermonuclear weaponry was used, and this actually sank their continents while they were disputing each other. This resulted in the Lemurians actually fleeing into Mount Shasta, where they supposedly still remain. Now, many people report in the 1940s of seeing Lemurians walking into towns, and they actually have accounts of how they looked, 7 feet tall, dressed in long white robes and sandals, and actually spending gold on supplies at general stores. Now, sightings of Lemurians have decreased greatly in present days, but this has only sprouted the idea of flying saucers now. These sightings of these ships kind of appearing at the top of the Mount Shasta, where cloud pockets have formed. And you can actually look at images where you see these very unusual circular clouds. There's a term for it. Oh my God, I thought I had it written down. I can't remember it. But there's a term for these clouds. It's a certain type of weather event that causes the formation in this specific way. And so people then speculate that this would be a great way for a ship to hide. And its shape does look like a cloud saucer, to be honest. So on top of that, these ships supposedly hiding in these clouds would use that as cover to go to the mountain to dock and basically allow Lemurians to travel inconspicuously so they're not drawing attention. Now, there is a book you can dive into called A Dweller on Two Planets. It's by Frederick Spencer Oliver. This is from the early 1900s. And in it, it states that survivors from the sunken continent of Lemuria are living in Mount Shasta via a massive tunnel network. Now, looking under the mountain, yes, there are tons of regular tunnels caused by their own natural formations, but the other thing I wanted to really point out was the thousands of lava tube caves that actually exist in and around Mount Shasta. And if you are unfamiliar with that, a lava tube is basically a naturally formed conduit from flowing lava that is dispersed from a volcanic vent moving beneath the hardened surface of a lava flow. So when the lava in the tube empties, it results in a cave formation. And one of the most terrifying caves caused by this is the Pluto Cave. It was formed by a basaltic lava flow almost 190,000 years ago. It became a sacred site to Native Americans and was eventually discovered by settlers in 1863. It was named after the Roman god of the underworld and has gained a reputation as a place to meet alien spirits and other things. It is also one of the many caves where people tend to find items belonging to unsavory types of ritual practices and other things that you necessarily don't want to be engaging in. I guess these people do certain things, they leave these things behind, and then other explorers come along and find them. So definitely a site that you want to be careful with. I highly recommend looking at imagery of these caves because they are fascinating, and the science behind it too. The natural formation is really, really cool, but they're almost like large highways, you could say. It's incredible how these burrows have formed for miles just where the lava has flowed. Definitely a very, very cool natural formation. Now, like I mentioned prior, numerous Bigfoot sightings have actually taken place on this mountain. Dating back to 1976, for example, there was a camper out there and believed to have encountered what he thought was a ranger walking past his camp. It turned out to be a large, hairy beast instead. Another lady, and this is a much more popular, prominent one that I'm sure you might be aware of, actually reported seeing Bigfoot giving birth, and this took place back in 1962. We have other reports of a forest ranger seeing a Bigfoot while out on patrol, and seeing as well chrome objects that seem to appear at night onto the mountain roads themselves. We have huge three-toed footprints found in 1955, and this was at the 11,000 foot level, and they were associated with both Bigfoot and Lemurians. But more often than not, loggers and hikers have reported sightings of huge, hairy, smelly creatures right up until present day. This is again something relevant to a previous episode me and Ruben did that explored a bit of the Bigfoot and UFO connection that they seem to both share. But before I continue on, I'm just going to jump to a quick ad break and we'll be right back. And we're back. So, looking in the year 2008, we have multiple people reportedly seeing a jellyfish-like ship hovering above without making any noise. These sightings of ships at Mount Shasta have been going on for decades. Back in the 1950s, they really seemed to boom. Looking further back during the Gold Rush era around 1850, after many indigenous people surrounding the mountain were wrongfully forced from their land, many of the area's caves were taken over by secret societies with Masonic group structures, you could say. Many members of these groups left their names and ranks actually painted onto the walls of these caves. Again, touching back onto the lava tubes we were talking about. This is to help identify them as places that held their strange initiations and rituals. And you can even find photos online of these as well, where these people are grouped up in these caves and there's just markings on the walls and such. It's really, really freaky and just leaves a knot in your stomach, I guess you could say. But this area is also rich in rock art and petroglyphs. The lava beds specifically are rich in cultural history with one of the largest concentrations of rock imagery in all of California. Many of these images stand out as a creation origin story, with some rock art dating back to 6,000 years ago, and some actually depicting the first people emerging into this region from inside the cave below. There's also a dominant amount of intricate geometrical symbols and mysterious patterns, being uniquely different in character and more abstract than other examples found elsewhere. Now, what these symbols and patterns really mean could be anyone's guess at this point. I tried really looking, and that was proving really, really difficult to find what people interpreted these things as, but they are old, very old. Mount Shasta, however, is also mentioned as having portals. I believe the term vortexes is used in regards to this as well, and these portals are seen being used by sometimes alien craft and people on the ground, which is interesting because when I really started looking into the Skinwalker Ranch, check out that episode on our feed, me and Ruben explored it, there's a lot of talk of people encountering portals opening up in front of them and things coming in and out, which could not rival, but kind of parallel the idea and the concept of transferring in between dimensions and realms, I guess you could say. But to see it up here, this is again a location that we're looking at that is highly concentrated in energy. At its core, this mountain just is an attractive energy that pulls in tourists from around the world and quite possibly does draw in interplanetary travelers as well. And with that, again, I don't just mean aliens, but beings from other dimensions. Now, again, like I mentioned prior, the landscape and food resource is pristine for someone to reside and hide in, or something. The entire Cascade Range itself offers a dangerous yet navigatable highway, you could say, from America to Canada. And that's assuming whatever some of these things could be choose to be exposed on such a high elevation. We don't have thorough exploration of these cave networks from point A to point B. Maybe from point A to A minus, but going from significant distances underground, we've covered the Cascade Range, but I want to know, has anyone gone maybe gone missing or anyone that's gotten lost. Like, there are notable people that have tried to set up expeditions exploring certain parts below Mount Shasta, finding very, very interesting things. But these individuals tend to just fall off the map. They fall off the radar. We don't hear from any follow-ups or anything like that. And that's what I'd really, really would like to know. Again, like I said, this experience that my mom felt when she visited this place was definitely a surreal one. But with all this information old and new, is this mountain really just one of many gateways to the center of the earth, producing so much energy to draw in heightened beings, or is it just a plain old coincidence? I'm definitely not running to hop on the train that Hollow Earth is a real concept, but I'm extremely open and receptive to it, and the evidence is becoming harder and harder to dismiss this thing. Now, if you were to say Mount Shasta was one of these entrances to a possible Hollow Earth area, I'm not going to dismiss it. For example, earlier in May, there was a massive 630-foot deep sinkhole that was found in China. They basically discovered 130-foot trees, a whole bunch of new species of plant life that was never found before, and you're telling me that there's still a possibility of no Hollow Earth entrances or anything like that? Like, they're still finding these things. And it just blows my mind that rare and dense plants and everything could be covering up some of the most prominent access points to underground networks, and we would just never be able to see it. And you could use satellites to a point, and I guess maybe a really, really advanced satellite could do it, but sometimes that thick, dense brush, you just can't get in there until there might be some trigger inside, some new heat source that's detected, which is kind of painting a thermal map, I guess you could say. I don't know. It could be like lava flowing through from a lava tube, breaks open into a cavern, and then you can use that heat to kind of like bounce off the walls and kind of map out this area of where the heat's flowing, basically. But I don't know if that technology is out there. But needless to say, there are amazing new locations that are being discovered, and they lead to incredible isolated areas underground where things are thriving. Another example, not too long ago, they found a volcano erupting out into the ocean, and they discovered, as they call it, mutations, where sharks and other underwater wildlife have adapted to their environments. And I don't know all the proper lingo or science behind that, but to me, I don't know if I would really call that a mutation. If there is a level of radioactive output emanating from this environment, from the volcano, then totally, definitely, slap a mutation label on it. But I often would want to attribute this to evolution, of the signs of these things adapting to it. When you have this 630-foot hole in the ground in China, you have never before seen plant life. The wildlife there some species or insects might never be seen by man as well, and they might be adapted and evolved to that surrounding. There's so many new species we haven't discovered. And I'm kind of like tangenting now, but I'll try and wrap us back around. I can't jump to any conclusions, and the idea of networks is something I find fascinating underground. I did a whole episode on cave networks in the United States alone. Like, it's incredible how many cave systems there are out there. I definitely recommend tuning into that episode, or just taking it upon yourself to Google it and just see how many caves that are spread out. It's like roots from a tree that's just reaching out in every single direction, and each root has 10 times the amount of cave and network systems attached to that. It's just endless and fantastic. There's so much going on beneath our feet that we just don't know about, and it's something that I want to tap into. I've done a little bit of spelunking myself, and it's a whole new world down there. It really, really is. You definitely want to wear a helmet, though. You don't want to bunk your head on anything. That can definitely hurt. But anyways, I digress. With Mount Shasta, there is something very, very powerful going on there. And, my final bit of information on this mountain would stem to the paranormal side. In more recent times, the I-5 interstate highway actually runs alongside this mountain, and there's a reportedly large amount of hauntings that seem to occur. People seeing these things on the sides of the road. In the 19th century, There are ruins of an old Shasta town just south of Mount Shasta as well, and this holds many reports of a few paranormal occurrences additionally, along with the significant reports of lights and orbs on the mountain itself, usually appearing at dawn, dusk, and midnight. So overall, in conclusion, this mountain seems to have a little bit of everything. Paranormal ghosts, aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, orbs, lights. It's just tapping into this whole energetic realm that we've been exploring. And the more episodes that I do of this, the more I can, I don't want to say connect the dots, but I can start drawing a line around that's kind of forming a inexplainable, very loosely founded connection between some of these things. And that just makes me wonder, really makes me wonder. So at the end of the day, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Definitely let me know what you think of Mount Shasta. If you've ever been, send me an email. If you have any experiences, I'd love to hear about it. CryptidClues@gmail.com is our email. Other than that, you can find us on our social media channels and on our website, CryptidClues.ca. And again, our Patreon, where you get ad-free exclusive early episodes. So that is all for today's episode. I thank you very much again for all your support this past month and the continued growth that we're experiencing. It was a good time with good things to come. So until next time, take care and stay safe.